Okay, for now, I'm going to talk about the introduction. So, the introduction is about the case of the Suresh Ramasamy v. Hong Leong Bank Berhad 2017 to Industrial Law Report 442, which concerns an unfair dismissal claim under Section 20, Subsection 3 of the Industrial Relations Act 1967. So the claimant in this case was the head of group IT security, and he was officially dismissed from his job for allegedly manipulating technical data in a corporate management report. So the bank treated this dishonest act as a form of serious misconduct, and they decided to terminate him only after conducting a true internal domestic inquiry. However, the employee disagreed with the decisions and claimed that his dismissal was completely without just cause or excuse, which is why he took the matter to court. And ultimately, this landmark case is very important because it clearly highlights the critical importance of maintaining fair disciplinary procedures and protecting absolute workplace integrity.
What happened in this case? First, Suresh was dismissed for serious misconduct. He was responsible for preparing a survey report for the bank's top management. He deliberately manipulated and misrepresented the survey data before the presentation. The manipulated report contained inaccurate information. So, the bank argued the manipulation was a serious breach of trust and confidence. Suresh violated the bank policy on integrity and accurate reporting. His position required him to protect IT security and data integrity. The bank considered the misconduct serious enough to justify the dismissal. But Suresh argued back. Suresh claimed the punishment was too severe. He argued that the dismissal was unfair and disproportionate. He sought reinstatement and other remedies before the industrial court. So, the main legal issue here is whether the bank had just cause and excuse to dismiss Suresh, and whether dismissal was an appropriate disciplinary action for manipulating the survey report. There is 3 human resource issues involved in this case. First is employee misconduct and breach of fiduciary duty. Employee manipulated and misrepresented company data, provide false information to top management, breach fiduciary duty like honesty, loyalty and good faith, and violated the bank's code of conduct and ethics. So he destroyed the trust and confidence between employer and employee. The second one is position of trust and responsibility. It is responsible for IT security and data integrity, expected to demonstrate professionalism, accountability and ethical behavior. Manipulation of official data compromised the credibility of the bank reporting system. Serious breach of duty justify the bank loss of confidence. The last one is employee legal right and disciplinary process. Employers cannot dismiss employees arbitrarily. Employee must be given a fair opportunity to respond. A domestic inquiry should be conducted before dismissal. Employee rights during domestic inquiry are know the allegation, present evidence, call witness and defend himself. And dismissal must comply with Malaysian employment law and the principle of natural justice.
Moving on to our next slide, let's analyze which human resource management area were heavily affected by this incident. We have broken down this into 2 critical pillars. First, we see the severe impact of employee and industrial relation. ER team are carrying the operational burden of managing office fairness and workforce discipline, forcing officers to gather solid evidence to prove organization acted fairly in case escalate to industrial court. Crucially, if we see the pre-dismissal step are flow, or if we fail to guarantee the employee basic right to be here, the court can completely overturn the termination. This operation oversight is what directly result the costly legal failure for the company. Second, within the performance and compliance management, this situation exposed the massive failure in traditional performance metrics which blindly measure high output while entirely ignoring personal ethical habit and failing to strictly monitor high-power senior executive. Moving forward, this demand much closer collaboration between HR practitioner and risk officer to embed the regular operational audit into high-level technical role. In summary, we must balance output goal with strict ethical oversight to protect our organization integrity.
Okay, in this slide, I will explain what Hong Leong Bank did after discovering employee misconduct involved the manipulation of the banking data. First, once the bank detected that an employee had interfered with a banking record, the human resource department immediately took action. Instead of the missing employees straight away, they followed properly disciplinary process. The employee was suspended from the work while the investigation was being carried out. This suspension was important because it prevented the employee from accessing the bank's information system and ensure that no evidence could be altered, deleted, or hidden. Next, the bank issued a show cause letter to the employer. This letter clearly states the allegation against him and gave him an opportunity to provide an explanation. This step is important because it follows the principle of natural justice, where an employee must be informed of the accusation and be given a fair chance to defend themselves before any decision is made. After reviewing the employee's explanation, the bank determined that further investigation was necessary. Therefore, the domestic inquiry panel was established. The panel examined all available evidence, listed to witness testimonies, and allowed the employee to prevent his defense. This ensured that the investigation was conducted fairly and objectively. Finally, after considering the finding, the domestic inquiry, the Human Resource Department concluded that the employee had committed seriously misconduct by manipulating banking records. As an result, the employee was dismissed in accordance with the bank disciplinary policy and procedures. Okay, for this slide, I will evaluate whether the Ho Leong Bank HR practice were effective or ineffective. Okay, overall, the bank's action can be considered effective because they follow all the structure and fair disciplinary process. The bank did not make rushed decision. Instead, they investigate the matter thoroughly, gave the employee an opportunity to explain, and conduct a domestic inquiry before deciding a dismissal. This demonstrates that the bank respect the employee's right while also protecting its own interests. Another reason why HR practice was effective is that the dismissal was later upheld by the industrial court and higher court. The court agreed that there was sufficient evidence showing that the employee had intentionally manipulate banking data. Since the data industry relies heavily on trust, integrity,
and accuracy, the employee's actions were viewing as a serious breach of responsibility. Therefore, the dismissal was considered lawful and justified. However, in this case, also highlight why some areas where the bank um, could improve. While the disciplinary process was effective after the misconduct occurred, the bank would focus more on the preventing such incidents from the happening in the first place. For example, the bank organization could conduct regular system audits, strengthen internal control and provide continuous ethics and compliance training, and closely monitor also employee access to sensitive information. By implementing this preventive measure, the bank may be able to identify risks early and reduce the likelihood of similar misconduct in the future. In conclusion, Honolulu Bank's HR practices were effective because they follow due process and act fairly. However, strengthening preventive measure would help the organization create a more secure and ethics workplace environment in the future. Thank you.
Moving on to our next slide, let's look critically at what went wrong within the organization. We recognize this system breakdown across 4 system operational areas. First, we seek weak internal oversight due to complete absence of functional maker-checker verification system. A senior manager was easily able to alter the survey dataset without any secondary review. Second, a flawed corporate culture creates extreme operational pressure to present perfect number. This environment tempted staff to take unethical shortcut, turning compliance into a mere paper checklist rather than daily routine. Third, there were several deficiencies in continuous risk assessment. Management lacked real-time tracking tool and giving executive absolute unilateral control over technical report heavily escalate the risk of data tampering. Finally, outdated internal audit mechanism left bank relying on slow manual and retroactive detection method instead of modern analytic. In summary, static risk policies could not withstand a high-pressure environment, allowing counterproductive workplace behavior to expand unchecked.
Okay, now I want to talk about systematic solutions. For the first one is implement a maker-checker policy. This means one employee prepares the report and another employee checks and approves it before it is submitted. This helps reduce errors and prevents data manipulations. For the second is conduct annual ethics and integrity training. Instead of giving employees a code of conduct only when they join the company, the bank should organize ethics workshop every year. This workshop help employees understand the importance of honesty and making the right decisions, especially those working with confidential information. For the third is strengthen the whistleblowing system. Employees should be encouraged to report unethical behavior without being afraid of punishment. HR must ensure that their identity is kept confidential and that they are protected from any negative consequences. For the last one is develop a standard disciplinary inquiry or DI guidebook. The guidebook should clearly explain the disciplinary procedures so that every case is handled fairly and consistently. It should also be updated regularly to follow the latest Malaysian laws.
Okay, for conclusion, so this case show us that honesty and integrity are essential in maintaining trust between employers and employees, because trust is the absolute foundation of any working relationships. In this specific case, the dismissal of the employee was completely justified because he committed serious misconduct by deliberately manipulating and lying about the data in a key management report. However, even though the mistake was very big, the bank did not just fire him immediately. Instead, they followed a fair and proper disciplinary process through a formal domestic inquiry, just giving the worker a full chance to defend himself. Ultimately, the court supported the bank's decision, and the big lesson here is that organizations should always promote an ethical work culture and strengthen internal controls, like using a marker checker system to prevent this kind of misconduct from happening in the future. Thank you.